nervous habit. And so to stop thinking, naturally one thinks up certain technical helps. Concentrate on breathing. Think of nothing but your breathing, in and out, in and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or look at a point of light and think of nothing else but the point of light. Concentrate, concentrate, concentrate. This helps you to eliminate all concepts from the mind, except what you're concentrating on. Then the next thing is to get rid of the point you're concentrating on. Now, most people think that means a blank mind. No. Do you see, you concentrate on something in order to cause the thought process, the verbalizing, to stop.
This is the
Then
story of a man
when you take away
named
the point
Stan.
of concentration, you are simply perceiving the world as is without verbalizing. Because the verbalizing has been stopped by the trick of concentrating. Concentration is only preliminary. Samadhi, or jhana, Zen, is not concentration in the ordinary sense, like staring at a point or thinking of one thing only. It is after concentration has stopped that you've taken away the point on which you concentrated, and you're open to the world with your naked senses. See that? Now that is the foundation experience. After you see that, and on the basis of seeing that, you can, of course, go back to concepts and construct this idea of the world, that idea, and the other idea. So this is why Zen does not involve any beliefs in any theory or doctrine. In this sense, it is not religion, if by religion you mean something which involves a system of beliefs. It is purely experimental and empirical in its approach. And it is getting rid of belief, getting rid of all dependence upon words and ideas. Not because words and ideas are evil, not because they are necessarily confusing, but because we do just happen to be confused by them. At this stage in our history, evolution, or what you will. So that really is the essential nature of the whole meditation process. The suspension of talking to yourself, either in words or any other conceptual image, numbers, or
Stream
whatever.
elements. Said. Bobtus_ is now live. Streaming the Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe, Parabolathon Steam giveaway. The trip is growing, the Parable Bell, the Parable is growing, the trip green circle video cassette please _wait 8.
A notation of life, like musical notation, is a way of writing down music so as to remember it. When we have words, they are the essential vehicles of memory. Write it down, remember it. And they give us a wonderful control. But we pay a price for that. To the extent that we are tied to our notations, say in music, that limits our musical ability. The Hindu is not tied to notes in music. He therefore values a kind of music which is a musical instrument, drum, flute, sitar, whatever, which is immediately responsive to every subtle motion of the human organism. He therefore plays things which, if we put it into our notation, we should have to get the most freaky quarter tones and funny rhythms which our notation isn't set up for. The Hindu therefore rejoices in the extreme subtlety of a flute responsive to human breath, an organic phenomenon. When he listens to our music, it all sounds like a military march because of the regular beat and the fixed harmonic intervals. It all sounds very, very structured and rigid. So in the same way, when you get free from certain fixed concepts of the way the world is, you find it is far more subtle than you thought it was. That human relationships, situations, are amazingly subtle. And you gain a facility for understanding them, not through conceptualizing them, but through asking your brain how it would deal with them. See, your brain is an organ like your heart, and it can deal with situations without having to think about them. The brain is not a thinking organ. Well, but one of its functions is thinking. The brain does a lot of things other than thinking. It's as if you had a fantastic computer in your skull. And it's a good idea to use it. And as we say, our brains are only 15% efficient. That's a way of talking. It's saying that really that what we call thinking is only 15% of the brain's activity. The brain is very active, controlling all our organic processes, our gland functions, our digestion, our circulation, everything. The brain is in control. The whole autonomic nervous system. So Zen proposes that you learn to use your nervous system. It's much more wonderful than you would ever suppose. And it gives you practice. The koan is to a great extent a situation in which you get practice for letting your nervous system answer questions and pass through problems instead of just your conscious thinking process. The conscious thinking process will not solve the puzzles. The brain will. Well, let's take an intermission.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door. This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket. Stanley took the bucket with him into this little hallway and closed the doors. This was their hideout. No one would ever find them here. Of course, no one would ever find them anyway because everyone was missing. But Stanley chose to ignore this fact and instead focus on how cool the hideout was. Just him and the bucket, two renegade heroes against the world, inside their secret, undetectable hideout, here, next to room 417. What a treat. Ah, no, apparently not. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh, no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait. Now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner? Well, I never. Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it. Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled. No more debate, no more discussion. Take a hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things. All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket. That way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, "Ah, it's a bucket." There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker. You know what? I could take the name-calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just giving us the silent treatment, and to be honest, I'm sick of the pettiness on display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of cleaning supplies, easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. I'll see you outside, and we can get on with the story about you and your bucket. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. You found one of them. one of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines. Stepping in.
Mubit said. At Bobtus added 15 minutes and added the message, bucket escape.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Error 4004 not found. Said. What face? Bobtus said. The bucket is super gone.
Oh, and I guess this is where Stanley felt he needed to be right now, in this little hallway. Here, with no distractions, to study room 417. Not to actually enter it. No. That would be far too forward. Stanley wanted to know it from the outside. To see it not just with his eyes, but with his heart. He would know room 417 as no man or woman had ever known an office before. That ladder over there. Oh, and that little picture of a horizon or something. It's all just a never-ending
Error
parade of joy
4004
for
not
Stanley.
found. Said. I'm typing. Bobtus said. Forder for Bobtus.
Ah, no, apparently not. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Error 4004 not found. Said. Sad face. Error 4004 not found. Said. Red coat McKay's spoon McKay's spoon McKay's spoon. Error 4004 not found. Said. I'm typing. Boptus. Said. Forder for compute. Error 4004 not found. Said. I'm typing. 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 Move it. Said. At Boptus added 15 minutes and added the message, each typing adds 1 hour. Error 4004 not found. Said. Not like this.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Stanley!
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Stanley!
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it. Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers. Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose.
Said. Hi,
Hello?
RIP.
Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway. Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Bobdus said. Forder for architecture, 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 Forder for architecture.
Yeah, it's wiggling now. That didn't happen before.
Move it. Said. At Bobtus added 15 minutes and added the message, elevator is pulsating.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845. "2845. Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo. Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini-stands? Stanley figs? What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Well, that's that, I think. We'll take a...
We will, I think, continue this kind of neurotic behavior until it either is our undoing or until we awaken to archaic values. And that's why the weekend is called what it is. And the archaic revival is a very large cultural wave that, you know, can be pushed. You could trace the beginnings of it, the first swell, back to the turn of the century with relativity and theosophy and surrealism and the work of Freud and Jung on the unconscious. But it's a discovery, a moving toward a realization that the values that can serve us are archaic values, that we have to go completely outside of history. And we have to make, we are going to find out the nature of human nature. We can't have it several ways. We can't live in obfuscation. The real question is man good? Because we're going to find out. Because as we move more and more into this cultural domain that I call the imagination, nothing lies between us and the expression of our dreams, And so far, our dreams have been, I think, expressed fairly shoddily. Our cities are like sores. Our contribution to the ecosystem of the planet is plutonium, pesticides, chlorofluorocarbons, so forth and so on. An apologist for the human race would say, but we had so many strikes against us. The law of gravity, the cost of materials, the resistance of water, air, and so forth and so on. Well, fine, then we're going to get rid of all that. We're going to enter into the imagination where, the tensile strength of a structure is whatever you say it is. This is where language comes in, I think. Language is the sort of the CAD-CAM, the computer-assisted drawing software for creating the reality of the imagination. I think it's overwhelming, our situation, the potential and the depth of the strikes against us. It's really, what's going on this planet is absolutely unique so far as we know. It's never happened before on this planet. Intelligence emerging out of biological organization and actually having a shot at what? Who knows? Being itself is some kind of opportunity. The reasonable expectation is that nothing exists. Why should anything exist? It seems to me the most conservative universe would be a dimensionless plenum, a homogeneous, pointless, dimensionless. That makes sense. Why, then, is there instead, multiplicity upon multiplicity? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. How in the world do you get from utter emptiness to that kind of thing? The richness, the creative force behind it all is awesome. And I'm not religious in any ordinary sense. And in fact, I'm violently anti-religious in most senses. I'm certainly, would lead the charge against priestcraft in any form. But the picture of the universe as a machine subject to a few laws discovered by a bunch of guys in powdered wigs, that's ridiculous. You've got to be kidding. Science doesn't deal, as it's always at pains to point out, with what's called subjective experience. Well, that's really too bad, because that's all any of us ever have, is subjective experience. So we have, in the interests of, I don't know what exactly, a curious drive, an obsession of the Greeks, really, an obsession with the physical world that we have not been able to disentangle ourselves with, so that, we can measure the temperature of distant stars, but we don't know what we think about the woman we're living with. Stuff like that. Just such a completely overgrown and overdeveloped dichotomous situation that it makes no sense. So, in terms of any kind of conclusion or something like that, it's that there is an experience. It's harmless, meaning it can't kill you. That's the guarantee there. There is this experience. It is in our cultural heritage. It synergizes the most profound and private dimensions of our being. It allows us to recast ourselves in new forms quickly. And if we don't turn back toward this style of relating to ourselves, to each other, and to the world, but persist instead in the addiction to syntactical abstraction, then I think we'll just run it off the edge. And it will be a tragedy, because it is a horse race. Don't let anybody kid you. It's not that the good guys are miles and miles behind, and so you just might as well tear your ticket up and throw it in the air and go home. No, it's an absolute horse race. Neck and neck, photo finish, race between education and disaster. I mean, we're going to either burst out into a millennium of freedom and caring and decency, or we're going to toxify the whole thing and just turn it into an ash heap. And the responsibility falls largely on us. And we don't know. I mean, the momentum, the lethal momentum of these institutions is terrifying. Our position is like that of people who are attempting to turn a battleship 180 degrees, and we're doing it with an oar. You know? I mean, the momentum of it is incredible. But it is not a closed system. And I say this as a reasonable person. I mean, I want to keep stressing that I won't sit at the same table with the channelers and the people who have good news about Atlantis and all of this stuff. I mean, if this is your private thing, it's okay, but the rules of evidence preclude it being taken seriously until you get your act more together. But in the psychedelic experience, there is confounding paranormal material. It's the only place I've ever found it. I scoured India. These guys, as far as I can tell, it's a skin game. That means is felt to be so which is, and so we go, I think, outside of the sexuality, constantly refusing to come to terms with the context in which it finds itself, which is the animal body, sexuality, emotion, body, sexuality, emotion, pain, desire, elation, ecstasy. And so psychedelics, I think, and for a very distributed sort or duct, the mention of some considerable percentage
Stream elements. Said. Bobtus _ is now live. Streaming the Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe, Parabolathon Steam giveaway. The trip is growing. The Parable bell. The Parable is growing. The trip green circle video cassette. Please _wait 8.
couldn't find it. This was not the correct.
Reason I say a in my
Or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
What the fuck? Game just yelled in my ear. What the hell was that? Dude, you know what this is giving me kind of the vibes of? And it's gonna be a weird comparison. Eraserhead in a way. And the only reason I say Eraserhead, dude, is because this is a nightmare. All right, coffee in the cup.
The end is never the end. Is never is never the end, 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 is... Perhaps the state of the end. And find a result. Be so be the collapse of ourselves. Affairs. When you... The end is never the end. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world, as though there were no consequences for a... The end is never the end, is never end, is never the end, is never the end. The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end. The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end.
Alright, I was just preparing day one's reference reels. I'm gonna go ahead and publish those today. And I'm only publishing reference reel for the moment. I'm going to then play the reference reels in my affiliated channel, and then from that chop it into rerun highlights to run as reruns for my experiencing Stanley Parable long play content, and that way I'll be able to just play all the sessions and spend a long time, and then when it runs out, when I run out of the content I've made, I'll start it over at the beginning and rotate it with everything else.
Eight.
Your faculties will be
Okay, that's horrible. Let's press the button again.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others. But of course, absolutely anyone can leave a review. So here's what we get. We get these demands that seek
Man.
set of two open doors.
he entered the door on his left.
New content. Hold on.
When he came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley personally to Stanley. Its grace, its subtle charm.
New Stanley Parable. We demand it. And then, because it was said...
Brando, if...
He couldn't find...
New content. Hold on.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This is never the end, is never the end. The end is never the end. End is never the end. End is never the end, is never the end. End is never the end. End is never the end, is never the end, is never the end. End is never the end, 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 is never the end. The end is end. Never the end. End is never the end.
Oh shit. James Brand will...
Except
New content. content. Hold on.
Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing. Never the end is never the end is never the end is never the end never end is never the end is end never the end is 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 never the
Alright, I decided to just go ahead and enter the edits, cuts, and process it and save it. So now I have a little under an hour left to mess around in here. And then I'll run some Stanley content from 2 years ago when I started beta testing and working out how I would construct very slow and long running relaxation content.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Mubit said. At Bobtus added 15 minutes and added the message, Day 1 stream published, cannot get to screen room disco secret anymore due to obstruction on the rail.
But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all. And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for. Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. And try not to lose this one too, you dolt. Stanley took the bucket with him into this little hallway and closed the doors. This was their hideout. No one would ever find them here. No, apparently not. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired. Perhaps this was where the bucket felt most truly at home, here in the employee lounge. Perhaps it's the only place a bucket can even feel at home. Stanley decided to just give the bucket absolutely as much time as it needed to be in the lounge. Clearly, the bucket and the employee lounge shared a special connection. But finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business.
No,
said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Mubit said. At Bobtus added 15 minutes and added the message, machine/aircraft sounds heard at a door down the ventilation in cargo hall. Bobtus said. Have we found the mumble room?
Okay, this is day number 295, tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down, it doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there? Camporata.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. Truly, being here with the bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired. Perhaps this was where the bucket felt most truly at home, here in the employee lounge. Perhaps it's the only place a bucket can even feel at home. But finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business. and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845.
Eight.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845. "2845. Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo. The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility, he tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below. Thankfully, he fell directly onto the bucket, which safely cushioned his fall. Now, what to do next? Stanley wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here. So they set up a little couch and relaxed. It really wasn't so bad down here, a bit cold perhaps. After some time had gone by, they installed a few shelves as well, and a sort of kitchenette that was useful for when the bucket was craving paninis. But it wasn't until the rugs and the standing lamps came in that it really started to feel like a home. In fact, after some time, Stanley realized that it had been ages since he had even thought of the mind control facility at all. He'd never gotten to fully explore what was up there, never been able to unearth the many mysteries of the mind control facility. This lack of closure began to eat at him. Soon he was dwelling on his regrets, and the state of their home slowly decayed as Stanley became withdrawn and neglected the cleaning. It unsettled the bucket deeply. Stanley wasn't usually like this. The bucket tried to reach out to him again and again, but to no avail. All Stanley could think about, all he could talk about, was going back, doing it over again, staying on the path. It was a mistake to leave the path. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. I need to do what the narrator says. I need to see the true ending. This made no sense at all to the bucket, which was simply trying to live its life down here as comfortably as possible. Yet Stanley was unconsolable. This isn't an ending. This is just a hole in the ground. The bucket sighed. True, it wasn't an ending. But it's where we happen to be. And maybe, possibly, if we accept the reality of things, maybe this will become an ending eventually. It's what the bucket was counting on. The two of them waited for a very long time.